The SCP Wiki, home to the best short-form horror fiction on the entire internet. A very serious place for very serious writers who only write about very serious things. This isn't your dad's fan fiction website. This is real literature for intellectuals, and we don't tolerate bad writing. If you're a bad writer, you better get out of here, because we're all good writers with taste. Every day we get a million bad articles. Real shit that nobody likes. And we laugh to ourselves as we downvote and delete the pages of these losers who don't write good. Today I'm gonna be absolutely destroying some crappy bad cold posts by dork losers who like SCP. I'm just kidding, oh my god. Could you imagine? There's this thing that happens on the SCP Wiki. Sometimes I get people in my comment section complaining about it. It happens like a couple times every day. Sometimes people will post a story and then boom, it'll get downvoted and deleted pretty much right away. -10 right off the bat. No notes, no comments, nothing. Just a pile of thumbs down and off to the dungeon with you. You know how in my other videos I analyze how different articles work? Well, this time I'm going to go through a handful of cold posts and then I'm going to tell you exactly why they failed. But first, let's talk about what this video is and what it is not. This is not a video where we dunk on somebody for writing something that isn't very good. This is not a video where we all sit around and we say, ha ha ha, this person can't write very well, what a loser, ha ha ha. Being a bad writer is the first step to being a good writer. I mean, damn, y'all should see some of the shit that I wrote when I was a kid. Y'all should see some of the shit that I wrote like last year. So no, this is not going to be a mean-spirited teardown of a couple bad articles. It's going to be an educational, compassionate, but still honest teardown of a couple of bad articles. By the time you see this video, the articles featured in it will have already long since been deleted. That means whatever numbers you see here will either be vacant again, or will belong to a completely different author and a different story. I'm also not going to mention who the authors are, because I don't want to direct any negative attention their way. The purpose of this is to discuss the most common and most fatal mistakes that new authors make when submitting their SCPs, usually for the first time. I'm going to be kind here, but I'm also not going to pull my punches when it comes to critiquing these. The stories that we're going to see today are genuinely bad. No use sugarcoating it. But, as you're going to see, most of these are bad for reasons that are pretty easily avoided. I hope that by watching this, you will be able to avoid these authors' mistakes when you publish. And don't forget that any bad story can eventually become a very, very good one. So let's wade into the swamp. This is the New Pages page. The page where new pages are newly paged. This is the section for SCP articles. And after being in this community for so long, I don't even need to open any of these to tell you which ones have a negative rating. Take a look at these and spot the outliers. You've probably noticed that the format on some of these is different. Lowercase letters, no dash in between, written out titles. But there's also this number here. This is the number of comments on a page. If something was posted more than an hour ago and it still has 0 comments, it means it lacks an author post, and it was so egregiously bad that commenting anything at all would essentially be a waste of time for readers. Let's open one of these up and see if we're right. Let's start with an easy one. This one is titled, Goodbye. I feel that it should be fairly obvious why this was deleted. It is not a story, it is a forum post that is in the wrong place. I didn't read the cold post that they're alluding to with this, but I don't need to because I can already tell that it probably wasn't formatted correctly, they probably did not get any critique at all, and they don't know how to use the forum. This happens a lot. There are stories published here that might even be good down at their core, but if you don't follow the guidelines for how to post, nobody's gonna give it a chance. If your formatting errors are not intentional, people can tell, and they're going to assume that the rest of your piece is equally as unpolished. How about this one? Can anybody tell me right off the bat what might be wrong with this one? If you guessed the title, you guessed correct. This isn't formatted right, which means the poster was not following the formatting guide. Furthermore, and much, much worse, this one is AI generated. You can tell because it's boring as hell and it mixes up the base A and B instances in a way a human author would not. At least if they were paying any attention. Okay, I lied a little bit when I said that I wasn't going to be mean. These ones, I don't actually feel bad about being mean toward. After all, it's not like someone actually wrote it. This sucks shit. Who did they post this for? What deep nerd on a text forum for sci-fi dorks wants to read slop? Nobody is the answer, judging by the ratings these always get. Sorry for the tangent. I fucking hate generative AI. You guys have no idea how many of these staff has to sort through every single day. It's fucking ridiculous. Get your slop vomit garbage off of our website, please and thank you. So fuck that, let's talk about one that was written by a human, but not executed terribly well. This one, titled SCP-9260, was written by someone who did try. You can tell it was written by a person because there are some pretty big lapses in what we call SPAG, which stands for spelling, punctuation, and grammar. Times of day being capitalized, things like that. Stuff that you can see immediately. The rating module is also missing, which indicates that they did not follow the posting guide, which would have also showed them to not have a line break after these bold items. You can see that this is very short, and the clinical tone feels generally inexperienced. I can tell that this author has probably not gone through the idea critique forum or the draft forum, or a lot of these problems would have been fixed. Getting idea critique as a first-time author, especially an inexperienced author, is really important, because it prevents you from wasting a bunch of time writing a draft that might not land in the first place. Getting critique, especially high-quality critique, is pretty hard. The forums might be slow, people might not respond to DMs, but ultimately it is probably going to save you from getting nuked right away. Because that's a much worse experience than having to wait around in the forums. So what about this one? What can we tell from a glance here? Incorrect title formatting, incorrect body formatting, these are supposed to be bold, and a missing rating module. Without reading anything else, I can get a pretty good idea that this article is probably not going to be very good. Why would I jump to such a conclusion? I'll tell you. Based on these lapses in formatting, I can tell right away that this author probably hasn't actually read that many SCPs, or at least new ones, and probably hasn't voted on very many either. If this author was more familiar with how SCPs typically look, they probably would have noticed that something was off and found a way to correct it. And if someone hasn't read enough SCPs to know what they look like, how can I be expected to believe that they've written a good one? Because it turns out they haven't. This article has a lot of grammatical errors. At least we can use that to determine that it probably was not AI generated. There are a lot of problems with the clinical format, spelling errors, unexplained designations. The idea itself has potential to be funny, but in this form, it's got a long way to go before it's readable. One of the ways that you can tell an entry is AI generated is if the text is mostly grammatically correct, but anything that a human had to input, like the title, is totally fucked up. Here, we have a botched title as well as a missing rating module. The rating module is a posting requirement, but because LLMs aren't trained on the source code of SCP articles, the AI doesn't know to put it in there. Also, this is another really boring-ass story. I have nothing else to say about this, your slop sucks. One thing that you've probably noticed about all the articles we've covered today is that they have two things in common. The author didn't follow instructions, and they didn't get critique. Yes, it sucks to publish an article and then have it deleted in less than a day. I'm not gonna pretend like having your work rejected isn't a completely shitty experience. But, fortunately for these authors, and for all of you watching, avoiding this fate is actually pretty easy. It just requires a bit of extra legwork before you post. So read the guides, follow the instructions, get a few pairs of eyes on it before you post, especially if it's your first time. It's also important to remember that if you have ever posted an article and it got deleted, whether immediate or on a delay, nobody remembers. The beautiful thing about page deletion is that once it's gone, it's essentially totally gone. Writing a bad article isn't against the rules. Aside from a bit of metadata, there's no record that you fucked up, and I promise you, nobody's going to look at your username and think, that's the bozo that published that bad article. Because everybody has read like 800 pages in the last year. Nobody's got time to remember the ones that weren't very good, so nobody will hold it against you. You can learn from your mistakes, and you can try again. Thank you for watching my video. I doubt that I will do another like this, just because most INSTA-DELETE articles have pretty much the same problems, so it would be kind of redundant. I'm gonna do some more analysis videos, and I think I might shoot another IRL one to talk about how to give and receive critique to maximize the help that you get from it. Here are a few of my favorite SCP channels here on YouTube and elsewhere, if you want recommendations. And here is my podcast account, if you want to listen to my award-winning SCP audio drama. Also, support me on Patreon if you want to see my videos early, and possibly vote on which one I'm doing next. And here's my Twitch schedule. Okay, love you, bye.